Hey, what is up everyone? So last week I put out a video basically with the whole premise of the video being that you should criticize Sea of Thieves. And it's a good thing to do to actually help keep the game alive, keep it going, give helpful criticism to the game. And part of what that video was also talking about how there's different sides of the community. There's people that are always hating against Sea of Thieves. Anything that they do is completely wrong and terrible. And then you have the flip side of that where you have tons of people that will basically defend any action that Sea of Thieves and Rare take and will get mad at anyone giving any sort of criticism to the game. So of course, I figured that with that type of video, I was going to get a lot of comments basically of people like what I was just saying, getting mad that I was criticizing the game. So in this video, what I thought would be fun is for me to just go through some of the comments that I was seeing either on that video or just some recent videos and just give some of my thoughts on what they might have said in those comments. Because really, there's a lot of times where I'll either see the same comment pop up here and there, or it would just be something that would be too long to dive into in terms of replying to the comment. So for this video, I just really want to use it as an opportunity to be able to address some of the things that I've been seeing people comment on my videos. So this first one that I want to pull out is not really a criticism towards me or the video or anything like that, but more so it's just something that I want to kind of add to and just talk about a little bit more. So I have this comment here that says, I haven't really played Sea of Thieves since the Burning Blade got added, tried here and there, but I don't know, game feels so stale and there's so many other good games right now. So really one of the biggest reasons why you'll see me criticize or critique Sea of Thieves is because I want people to keep playing the game. I want there to be reasons for people to enjoy Sea of Thieves. And if Sea of Thieves is not being competitive, and like I mentioned in that video, in terms of like the Halloween event, other games like Fortnite are doing huge things for Halloween. Fortnite has their whole Fortnite mirrors, which has been a really big success this year, I would say. Lots of things going on in the game, new modes, all that kind of stuff. And I even just saw recently, I think Marvel Rivals is having like a Marvel Zombies PvE mode getting added for Halloween this year, and that's pretty cool. So all these other live service games are doing stuff to keep people engaged, and I think a lot of players have been feeling that Sea of Thieves has just gotten stale over the last few years. The core game is still great, even though, there's bugs and stuff that need to be addressed in terms of different aspects of the game. But overall, the core concept and the core fundamentals of the game are there, and they've been great for many years now. But what we're really looking at for in terms of a live service game and to keep the game fresh and keep it going is to keep building on top of that core foundation. And some things that Sea of Thieves has done over the last few years have actually hurt and damaged that core foundation that I think has also pushed some players away. And this next comment I think actually goes to that as well. So this one's a little bit more of a criticism where it says, dare I say forced PvP needs to be revisited, not done away with altogether, just allow folks to be able to enjoy the beautiful and immersive game without being punished or shunned to a lone server with consequences. Yeah, I guess I'm that guy, and in advance I already know it's a pirate game. It's Sea of Thieves, not Sea of Friends, yada yada. So this is something that has been a building resentment in the game for a long time, but I think it really got inflamed with the addition of Safer Seas once that opinion was kind of validated in a sense, with Rare giving them the PvE servers with Safer Seas, and it basically became a situation of you give them a little bit and they'll ask for way more. And that's what I see with Safer Seas. Rare gave them what they wanted, but now that wasn't enough. Now they have to have basically everything, even when it doesn't really make sense in certain ways. And I have a few thoughts specifically with this comment. The first one is I'm not exactly sure what in particular he's talking about with forced PvP, but there have been things like the Skull of Siren Song, and even just like the recent event that we got in the game with the Royal Crest Fortress event, which are very much designed to engage people in PvP combat. Now, I don't think the problem is PvP or forcing PvP. I think just some of these are just flawed in design concept. And I think what you really need to do is, in order to make engaging PvP, you need to make the PvE content engaging. Because if you make the PvE content engaging, people will go and try to do that, and then that will attract the PvP players. But if you go in with the core mindset of, okay, we need to make forced PvP happen with this, like they did with the Skull Siren Song, then you're just not going to get anyone that wants to do it. If you look at the Skull Siren Song, the core gameplay of that event is pretty boring. It's pretty lackluster. You go to two different islands, you find a key, you get a box, you open it up, and then you take a skull and you have to run around an island to find some woman that's just calling out to you and just try to give her the skull. If you have no one attacking you, that core gameplay is extremely boring. So you have to make it fun, and I would say something like what we just recently got with the Reaper Forts in the game is a way that you can actually encourage PvP while also making the PvE more interesting and engaging. If you don't have anyone that attacks you while doing the Reaper Fort, I would say the Reaper Fort is enjoyable to do. But if you do have someone engage you, which you probably will because there's high value loot and it's worth going to try to take it, that's the way they should be encouraging PvP. So not stuff like the Skull Siren Song or other things like forcing you to have like a Reaper Mark flag to do certain voyages or stuff like that. With that said though, there is another side of this comment that I'm kind of noticing with it, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. Y'all can let me know in the comments below what you think about this. But it kind of comes off as saying that PvP is the reason why the game is on decline. And I would argue that if we look back at that video with the Google Trends chart, when they start introducing stuff like safer seas and the diving to voyages and all that kind of stuff that was more the PvE side and really hurt a lot of the PvP aspects in the game, that's when we started seeing the decline in player numbers and just the interest in the game in general. So I think we spent enough time on that comment. Let's go ahead and find another one. Alright, so this next one I think is pretty interesting as well. So this one says, you have to give it time with updates to the Devil's Roar in the next season and everything I've seen announced for that on Insiders. It sounds like the best season we've had probably since season 13. Then we have custom servers early next year, so give it time, and everything you're playing about, which I think he's trying to say complaining about, might just be a typo there, but everything you're complaining about will be resolved really soon. I don't think most people realize how much custom servers will shake things up. They are the biggest feature we will receive for Sea of Thieves. So here's the biggest problem with this comment. And I think it does come from a good faith perspective, but for one thing, this guy is not the only person that's seeing the stuff in Insiders. Now that the NDA has been lifted, we literally have gone over all the announcements, all the plans for Season 18. We all know what's coming out in Season 18, and I even have stuff in that video that I'll leave linked here for y'all that I actually am excited for, like the Action Garrisons that's coming in the 3rd month. I hate that we have to wait so long to get to that point for the thing that I'm really looking forward to, but I am looking forward to that, and that sounds pretty cool. But here's the problem with this kind of mentality that you just have to keep giving it time. We've been doing that. We've been giving it time for years now. I would say since Season 9, that's been when we started having to do this whole mindset of give it time. We're giving it time, waiting for, Season 9, one of the longest seasons we've ever had, waiting for that to be over to get to Season 10. We were disappointed by all the stuff that was added in that, and I think we've just been disappointment after disappointment for the past several years since Season 9. I would say Season 8 was probably the last really well-received season, and even that, because of how Hourglass has ended up, that has not had a great legacy either. But I feel like when Season 8 was first released, it was pretty well-received. The other thing that I noticed with this comment is talking about the custom servers. Now, I have mixed feelings about the custom servers, and we talked about that during the community direct and when we were live streaming about that, and I was kind of talking about my thoughts on that. But I have kind of two sides of it. On the one side, from the content creator's perspective, I can make more engaging videos and maybe do other interesting things in the game that I could not ever have done before. I've had ideas for stuff like rowboat races across the game, and maybe doing some charity events or all types of other stuff. So there's really cool things that can be done with custom servers in that sense. The other side of my thought with custom servers is that it could potentially make Sea of Thieves gameplay on YouTube and TikTok and other places not as interesting. And the reason I say this is I think back with Fortnite. So I'm someone that really enjoys Fortnite. I've been playing since like the first month it ever released, and I've been playing consistently for the last many years since 2017. Back in the day, Fortnite clips and Fortnite gameplay used to be pretty engaging. People were pretty excited to watch it. If you saw a really cool clip, that was really exciting, and you were sharing it, you were liking it, all that kind of stuff. But then they introduced stuff like the playground mode and creative mode, which then made it so that basically any clip that you saw, there was a good chance that that clip was probably just manufactured in creative mode or something like that. So it wasn't really a genuine, authentic moment. It wasn't like a legit headshot or whatever the case may be. Whatever the clip is, whether it's a funny moment, whether it's like a trick shot, All of that, it's probably fake at this point because they're able to do it in these custom environments where they can keep doing it until they get the perfect take. That's what I'm kind of worried about with custom servers for Sea of Thieves. Right now, and even I would say right now, Sea of Thieves like gameplay is a little bit on the decline as well, but it's still pretty popular because if you see something that happens in a Sea of Thieves video, it's probably authentic. Yes, we have safer seas, but it's a little bit hard to fake stuff in that still just because of the restrictions and you only have like your own ship. Once you add custom servers and that people can just go in and like create their own moments and then record it, they can try to pass it off as genuine clips, but the illusion's gonna be broken. Everyone's gonna know that you can basically manufacture any type of clip you want in custom servers. So then that's gonna make the authentic moments that happen in high seas in the regular mode not feel as exciting anymore. And you might even have these exciting clips that still come out after this point, but people aren't going to really care because the illusion's been broken with custom servers. So that's my biggest concern. It's kind of like how we see in the whole thing with the whole AI movement and everything that's going on. People are posting AI videos online and now people are questioning whether or not it's real or fake or whatever the case is. That's kind of what I'm worried about with custom servers in terms of the content creation side. In terms of gameplay, if you're not focused on anything outside of the game, gameplay, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty exciting. But it also is not really adding much to the game in terms of like actual new content to do. So I wouldn't even say it's the biggest thing to be really excited for the game as well. With that all said though, someone else replied to this person's comment, and I think this also needs to be addressed. And they say, crybabies think developing a game is simple as thinking of an idea and then it happens. Instant gratification, TikTok brain rot has ruined them. I kind of already addressed this, but again, we've been dealing with these problems with the game for many years now. This isn't something like that people are just say, oh, why aren't they doing this? And then expecting it to happen immediately. These are things that people have been talking about, whether it's say like Hourglass or, Hunter's Call or anything really in the game. There's been tons of discussion about basically tons of things that they could do, and they just don't really do anything. And the things that they do in the game are reskin content with the occasional unique or genuine idea that gets thrown in there sometimes. So this whole idea that people are just being crybabies because they think it's going to happen instantly is just not true. This has been an issue with the game for many years now. You can't just say that people waiting years upon years for stuff in the game is wanting instant gratification. It just is not right. So this one's a little bit more of a positive one. I got a comment here that says, try No Man's Sky, no microtransactions and 10 years of full support, multiple major DLCs with more to come, all for free after you buy the game. No Man's Sky is like kind of an anomaly in terms of like the live service space. They've done a great job from kind of destruction. And I would say No Man's Sky and Sea of Thieves almost have a similar path in terms of the way that they started. If you remember, both with No Man's Sky and Sea of Thieves, they both were kind of disappointments when they first launched. I still enjoyed Sea of Thieves when it first launched, but for the most part, people were disappointed because they didn't think there was enough content in the game. Now, No Man's Sky was in a different case in terms of maybe over-promising and under-delivering, but No Man's Sky and I would say Sea of Thieves for the first few years both worked very hard to kind of rehabilitate the game and get it into a better place. And I think both succeeded in that, but then we saw Sea of Thieves kind of take a different path and kind of not do as great. No Man's Sky, on the other hand, I feel like continued with what they were doing and kept just making the game even better and better. And this isn't what this person's saying, but this is stuff that I've heard other people have talked about. I hear a lot of people say that, there's only so much that you can do with a pirate game, and, there's not really much left that they could do with Sea of Thieves. That's just not true. If you look at something like No Man's Sky, they've been doing major expansions and changes to that game that have really changed up the game and really brought it to a whole new level. Sea of Thieves, yes, it's a different theme, pirate theme and all that stuff, but it's not that different in terms of, adding new content to the game. There's tons of stuff that they can still do with Sea of Thieves, tons of stuff that I've talked in my videos, tons of stuff that other content creators have talked about, and tons that y'all have mentioned in my comments before. But in terms of No Man's Sky, I've tried to check that out actually. And the only problem that I have with No Man's Sky is that I just don't really have enough time to add another live service game into my playtime. It's been a game that I've always been interested in. I think it looks pretty cool, but when I've tried to play it a few times, it felt like a game that I really needed to invest a lot of time into in order to like really understand what I was doing and like really, get to somewhere. And I just didn't have enough time to do that at that point. But maybe one day I will try to get into it more. So one common theme that I've been seeing with a few comments, especially in this video, but in other comment sections for other videos as well, is that there's this idea that Sea of Thieves YouTubers are very toxic. Now, I can't really speak, I've addressed this before on like other live streams and stuff, just when we were talking about stuff. I typically don't really watch too many other Sea of Thieves creators. And that's personally just for me because I like to try to keep my opinions authentic. And I feel like if I watch too many other creators, I might start like adopting their ideas or their thoughts on the game, and then they wouldn't really be as genuine to me. And I also don't want to get into a situation where I'm accidentally copying other creators or anything like that. If there's similarities in terms of like what topics I'm covering or what I say in certain videos, that's just coincidence and probably just because, we might be thinking similar in terms of certain topics, but not because I'm actually watching other content. And that's not to say that I never watch other Sea of Thieves videos. I have watched, a handful within the last couple weeks and months. But I typically try to avoid it just because, one, I'm also just so immersed into Sea of Thieves. And, a lot of times there's not really much that I am trying to learn from other people because I have to kind of stay up to date on everything just to keep up with the videos and everything like that. I have to be knowledgeable about what I'm talking about. So usually like other videos that might be explaining stuff that I already know, there's not really a point for me to watch those as well. But in regards to this comment, I really don't know to what extent other YouTubers are being toxic or maybe trolling or whatever the case may be, whatever their definition of toxic is. I've gone into depth before of what I think is toxic in Sea of Thieves and what's not toxic, but the thing that I don't really understand is what about my video or any of my videos is in particular toxic, because I can't really talk about any other creators, but if they're coming into my comment section talking about, see if these YouTubers in general are toxic, well, you have to explain that. What specifically have I done that is toxic? And there's nothing that I can really point to. I try to be honest and well balanced with my criticisms about the game. I'll give praises to Sea of Thieves for stuff that I think they did good, and I'll criticize them for things that I think they've done bad. I think that's just how a normal person should react to most things. But yeah, that's a common thread that I've been seeing through a handful of comments on different videos. Here's another comment that's probably going to give me a little bit of hate on this video, but I don't really care. So this comment says, game's been dead ever since they removed Arena, nothing new. So the reason I say that I'm going to get a little bit of hate on this is because while I loved Arena, I actually was someone that did consistently play Arena way before they even announced that it was going to be canceled. I really enjoyed playing it, even though I did think it had a lot of flaws and could be fixed and ways to make it a lot better than it was. All that to say, Arena is not the thing that makes people want to play Sea of Thieves. Arena, I felt, was something additional to the game. It was a great addition to the game, but it wasn't the main reason that Sea of Thieves is such a special and unique game. High Seas, or what it was previously known as just the adventure mode in Sea of Thieves, has always been the main part of the game, the core part of what makes Sea of Thieves special, that shared open world PvPvE environment. So while I love Arena, I don't think the game is dead because Arena is gone. Now, what this person might be saying is just using that as a benchmark for, when Arena was taken out, there was nothing added since then that was great. But I would also disagree with that as well. As many of you know, Sea Forts are one of my favorite additions to the game. I feel like it's a great piece of PvE on-demand content, and that was something that was post-Arena being taken out. It was actually immediately after Arena got taken out. So even with that example alone, there has been good stuff that was added to the game post-Arena being taken out. So either way that you take this comment, whether it's specifically about Arena or just using it as like a time marker of content from that point, either way, I don't really feel like that fits. I also really don't like the idea of just saying the game is dead. The game is not dead, it's just in a poor state right now. Alright, so this next comment is one that I actually did reply to, but I did want to bring it up in this video to expand upon it. And it's because I feel like a portion of basically any game or live service game player base that has exclusive cosmetics has this kind of mindset, and I just wanted to talk about it. So this comment says, Rare doesn't listen, they got a game with cosmetics in from years back that people would pay big for. I don't get why they don't make these available in the Emporium, it's wild. So first off, let's be very clear. Bringing back cosmetics from the past and just making them all available is going to do nothing to actually fix the game or make it better. Let's just be clear. The problem with the game is bugs and content and then over microtransactions for dumb stuff. So bringing back cosmetics that were promised to be exclusive would not fix the game in any sort of form. And in many ways, it would probably just push a lot of people away from the game. So this is something that I've seen in many different gaming communities, but specifically I've seen this a lot with Fortnite. As many of you know, Fortnite has a lot of exclusive cosmetics from the past that aren't coming back. And there's people that started playing the game later on that get pissed off about that. Let's be very clear. You are not entitled to have every cosmetic in a certain game. Just like how you're not entitled to have every single thing that is available in this entire world. For most people, you had the opportunity in some way to play Sea of Thieves back in the day. Unless you weren't born in 2018 when Sea of Thieves first released, you had the opportunity. Maybe you were on PlayStation, you could have got an Xbox, you could have got a PC and played the game. Maybe you did have an Xbox, maybe you had a PC, but you just didn't want to play it at the time and because for whatever reason you didn't want to play. Maybe you had the game originally and then you stopped playing for a few years and then you missed out on some cosmetics. You know what I say to that? Tough luck. I've shared this story before, but since I've been playing Sea of Thieves, back in the day there were certain events that required you to have multiple people. I'm thinking to things like the Cursed Sales event. And since I mostly play solo when I play Sea of Thieves, back then I didn't have anyone to help me get that event done. So I missed out on some cosmetics that I really wanted to get. But am I going to complain about that years later and say that, it's not fair, they should put it back in the game for me to have because I deserve it? No. What I think is a fair compromise, though, is what Sea of Thieves and Fortnite and many other games do, which is reskins. I am perfectly fine with reskins, and one that we talked about before is the Bone Crusher set. I love the Bone Crusher figurehead. It's one of my favorite figureheads in the game. I think it's a really cool one. I don't have the original one. And I don't think they should bring it back. So for people that might say that, this is just hypocritical because you have those cosmetics and you're just trying to keep it from everyone else, no, I actually don't have the cosmetics that I would really love to have. Same with the Ferryman set. I would love to get the Ferryman set, and back then I didn't have the money to spend extra on an extra controller for Sea of Thieves for a game that I'm not even be playing for a long time. That was just my mentality back then. Could I have bought the controller? Probably could have. I could have figured out a way to be able to afford it and buy it, but I didn't really see the value in it at the time. The problem with the mentality that I see here is very much the whole idea of everyone deserves a participation trophy. That's just not true. Whether it was something that you earned, maybe you worked hard for, maybe you were there and you took part in some sort of event, or you just were part of that period of time with the game, you earned those rewards back then. Now, if Rare never made a promise for those rewards to be exclusive, sure, I don't care if you bring them back. But certain cosmetics, and the cosmetics that this person is referring to, those were promised to be limited time, or exclusive to some sort of thing. And bringing those cosmetics back would be breaking a promise, and it would make Rare lose all credibility. So I think that's enough said on that topic. No more participation trophies. Some of these people just need to grow up. That's my honest opinion on that. Alright, so this next one was a reply to someone else's comment. I'm not going to get into the whole part of the other person's comment, but I do really kind of hyper-focus on this one reply because I think it gets into an interesting broader point of the game. And they say, a better product for which part of the fan base? The half that just wants more PvP or the PvE side? Because anytime they try to do something one side, it always gets pissy, and it's almost always the hardcore PvP players. Now, I disagree with this in certain ways, but there is some truth in part of this. The thing that I disagree with is that, they say that it's always the hardcore PvP players that are complaining all the time. Now, I think there's multiple sides of the PvP crowd. There's the PvP side that the whole double gunning, quick swapping, get freaked out anytime there's, any sort of buff or nerf to a certain weapon or change or anything like that. There's that side of the PvP crowd, but then there's kind of I would say, the more moderate people on the PvP side. Don't have too many issues with a lot of these things, but I often see a lot of the PvE side, and more so the people that hate PvP in general, always complaining that, Safer Seas doesn't have enough, or why does this have PvP, or why are people attacking, why is the game designed like this, and just basically hating on the core game itself. But the thing that I did think was interesting about this is talking about that anytime that they try to do something, one side always gets pissy. And I think there's a good amount of truth with that, and that's because Rare has not really been focusing on how to actually design their content to actually be appealable to both sides. And this is kind of what I was getting into earlier in terms of the forced PvP idea. If you make good PvE content with rewards tied to that are actually worth going and trying to get, whether it's that you just go and do the activity yourself or go and try to steal it, that's how you create natural PvP that is engaging. So good PvP comes from good PvE, and that's my philosophy with the game. And I feel like that's something that Sea of Thieves has been avoiding. They either heavily focus on PvE content that is somewhat boring to either steal, or the rewards that you get from it, or lackluster, whatever the case may be, or they have the flip side of it where they hyper focus on PvP to the extent where they don't make the gameplay actually engaging. I think they've gotten better. We use the Skull Siren song as a good example, but that's, all the way back in season 10. We're now almost at season 18, and they've done better with certain things. I would say some of the Reaper voyages that we got for last season were pretty decent. I think the Royal Crest Fortress event that we just had recently, while somewhat buggy, was a lot of fun and fit more into that idea of making good PvE content that naturally created PvP. I think they could do it a little bit better, of course, and they've done better in the past with certain things, but in general, that's what I think needs to be done in terms of making it so that both sides aren't getting pissy at each other. But let's be honest, there's always going to be some part of the community that's going to get pissy about anything that happens in the game. And that's kind of what the whole point of that original video was, that you should critique the game, but you need to make sure that you don't fall into those echo chambers of the either sides of saying that anything that Sea of Thieves does is terrible, or that anything that Sea of Thieves does is amazing. You have to kind of come at it from a more nuanced, more balanced take. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. We'll probably do this type of video where I respond to some comments that we've had on certain videos again in the future, maybe do it as like a live stream or something. But if you did enjoy this video, it'd be great if you have to like and subscribed. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this? Do any of your opinions change based on some of these comments I reacted to, or my thoughts on any of them? Or just what in general do you think about it? But that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye y'all.